Hey guys, Disclaimer Magic here, and it's time to continue this series that proves you suck at MTG and didn't even know it. Just kidding, these are just little tips to fine-tune your play and get rid of bad habits and just give you a tiny little couple % chance of winning that'll hopefully carry you all the way to a victory at Friday Night Magic. Now this one's a little bit more elaborate than the rest, but it's easy to understand, and I'm shocked at how many people don't do this, but then again, it only comes up once in a while depending upon how many cards are in Standard really and how the sets were designed. I actually couldn't really find a good example in Standard right now, so not the greatest tip, but if you back up just a little ways around like Fate Reforged and Theros, this was so true and it bugged me every time I saw people not doing this. When most people are building their decks, what they do is they say, hey, I'm going to put in, 4 Death Touchers or 8 Death Touchers or whatever. I just need a dirt cheap, low-cost Death Toucher to throw it onto the field so that I can, stall out the block until I can get out my big guys or get my combo off. Very, very, very typical strategy. So let's say they just need 4, all they need is a Death Toucher. Maybe their, strategy involves just getting a creature past the block and then boosting it like crazy, and you don't think that they'll block a 1/1 Death Toucher because it's only 1 damage. I love that strategy, by the way. So they just throw in 4 Typhoid Rites and call it a day. It's a 1/1 Death Toucher, nothing special. It's just the perfect creature that they need. Or maybe they actually need 8 Death Touchers, which you really should put in 8 of any concept in a deck, minus scrying and drawing, of course. So then they throw in a Ruthless Ripper, because she's pretty awesome too, right? I mean, and she's got, Death Touch and Morph, which is cool. Now, whether or not you actually intend to use her ability, she's still just a 1/1 Death Toucher for 1, and that's awesome. So they put in, maybe 4 of the Rat, 2 of the Ruthless, or 4 of the Ruthless, 2 of the Rat. That would make way more sense. Now, that's not the greatest strategy, because around the same time, give or take, as far as memory serves, there was also another card legal called Pharika's Chosen. Yes, I know, Pharika, I don't know. Did they release pronunciation keys? No, so shut up. I don't care if it's Paprika. So you should be throwing in Paprika's Chosen, because apparently that Paprika is poison because it's a 1/1 Death Toucher. So what's the point of throwing in, 2 Ruthless Rippers, 2 Pharika's Chosen, and 2 Typhoid Rats? Well, it's obvious. The card Bile Blight. Target creature and all creatures with the same name as that creature get -3/-3 until end of turn. So you really don't want to get out a line of 3 Typhoid Rats or 3 Ruthless Rippers or even 2 and then give them a little 2-for-1 special with that spell. You're making the spell twice as effective and twice as detrimental. And remember, you only start the game with 7 cards. Yeah, they're kind of throwaway creatures. They're not that important. But you can't just throw out a card, throw out another card. Oh, I lost both of them. It's like starting the game after mulliganing 2. You're down 2 cards. Now, whether we're talking about Standard or Modern, there's cards like Declaration in Stone, exile target creature and all other creatures his controller controls with the same name as that creature. And then there's everybody's favorite, Infinite Obliteration. Name a creature card, search target opponent's graveyard, hand, and library for a number of cards with that name and exile them. So that's not even blocking you and making you draw dead. That's getting rid of them from your entire deck. Hey, remember Godsend? Whenever equipped creature blocks or becomes blocked by 1 or more creatures, you may exile one of those creatures. Opponents can't cast cards with the same name as cards exiled with Godsend. Ouch. Then there's my all-time favorite, Meddling Mage. Everybody loves this card, and by that I mean everybody hates this card. As Meddling Mage comes into play, name a non-land card. The named card can't be played. In almost every, I'll say standard cycle, block might be a little bit generous, there's usually a card that says blah 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 same name, or even like creature type. That's a lot rarer, but they just say you can't cast rats. Well, they can't say you can't cast humans, rats, and snakes, so you might as well mix it up a little bit. This is much, much, much more common in Modern. Now, not a lot of people do name matching cards, but they might have them in their sideboard. But in Modern, there's so many more to choose from, you probably will find truly redundant, functional reprint clone cards. Now, the one little exception is that, those 3 cards, Typhoid, Ruthless, and Pharika's, are not equal. Ruthless Ripper has an ability, so it's just better. Now, if you absolutely think that you'll never, ever, ever morph the card for 3 and then reveal a black card from your hand, flip it, and deal 2 damage, or force the opponent to lose 2 life, those are 2 different things, by the way, then okay, they are equal. But, come on, you might need a colorless 2/2 at some point. You just might. So if the cards are truly unequal, like let's say there's a 1/1 Death Toucher for 2 instead of 1, don't put it in. It's not worth the detriment. This is such a slight maybe possibility advantage that it's not worth making your deck actually worse by throwing in creatures to dodge just name matching. I mean, if there's only 4 cards in your deck with the same name in the first place, you know, minus infinite obliteration and stuff like that, having actually 2 of them on the field at the same time in one game is pretty darn unlikely. It's around 10 to 15% chance, give or take. But there is one more advantage to splitting up your creatures just by name. Let's say, you know, instead of 1/1 Black Death Touchers, we're talking about just, you know, creatures with Heroic, and you don't really care what they cost or what they do. Or maybe, and this is huge, you just need really dirt cheap blue flyers, like 1/1 blue flyers for 1. There's almost always multiple 1/1 blue flyers for 1. So if you split it up, let's say your deck only calls for about 6 to 8 of them. Well, if you go like 2/2/2 or 2/2/2/2, if you can find 4 redundant, you know, semi-clones of each other, the opponent is going to see them either the first game or the second game or the next week. As long as they don't really know how you built your deck and literally have a deck list in front of them, or if they didn't kind of catch on to what you're doing, they're going to naturally assume, because the normal way to build a deck is like 4 times 10, 40, 20 lands done, except usually 21. They're going to assume that you have 4 of the one card, 4 of the other card, 4 of the other card, and they're going to say, wow, he has 12 1/1 blue flyers. That's weird. He's probably going to turn them into dragons or something, or, you know, exile them and replace them with 4/4 flying sphinxes, or, you know, deal damage based on the number of creatures on the field, because, wow, that's just like a dirt cheap rush deck, when in reality your deck does something completely different, like summon super expensive Leviathans or something, and they just think that you have way, way, way more of that type of card than you actually do. And that's huge, because this exclusively fools people who are really good at the game and watch for that kind of thing, and kind of are always watching to try and see what type of deck you built, and then they start making assumptions, because until they have a reason to believe otherwise, you've got 12 blue 1/1 flyers in your deck. Now, extremely good players will not just like take that as absolute fact. They'll say, I suspect that that's what's in his deck, but maybe he literally did just go 2/2/2. Well, especially if late game you don't have, you know, 5 of them out on the field, they might start thinking, yeah, he probably just kind of split it up. But hey, any small advantage is a small advantage, and if you looked at the last 7 videos in this series and did absolutely everything in them, it kind of accumulates to like a 10, 20, 30% advantage. Who knows? These little teeny tiny tricks are what the pros use to just be that much better than everybody else and consistently win. So definitely hit that subscribe button, because this is not the end of this series by far. There's a whole bunch more tips that I have written down, and you definitely don't want to miss them. So I'll see you guys next video.